Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andre Garcia. I'm an AVP of Global Infrastructure Services for ABM. And also good morning and good evening to those of you online actually watching our presentation. We appreciate some of you that are staying up overseas to actually take this presentation in very late at night or very early in the morning your time. Today we're going to be talking about our customer journey with Skype for Business. I have some co-speakers here with me from my team. Patrick Murphy, just wave your hand. He's an enterprise architect, reports to me. We've also got these two gentlemen here, Michael Harewood and Jim Mancuso. Michael is a senior systems administrator, and Jim Mancuso is a systems engineer. They've all been with us for several years, and I'm grateful to be able to share the stage with them to give you what ABM's journey has been leveraging Skype for Business. So today we're going to be talking to you a little bit about ABM because oftentimes we have to introduce the company as the largest company no one's ever heard of. We'll also talk about ABM's journey to Skype for Business and what it actually took to actually build the infrastructure and how we support it. And then we'll take some questions. So first off, ABM. ABM has actually been around for over 100 years. We are a publicly traded stock on the New York Stock Exchange, and we're actually formed in 1909 as a window washing company. So this is a very long laundry list of services, but I want to take you through a step-by-step, a little bit through an airport, just to give you an idea. How many of you had to travel by plane to get here? Most of you, as I imagined. So when you got to the airport and you parked your car, it might have been an ABM shuttle you got on. Or the driver of the bus might have been an ABM employee. Or if you drove your car and someone dropped you off at the airport, that might have been ABM SkyCap services picking up your bags at the curbside. You might recall ever seeing a shirt that says AirServe on it. AirServe is one of our brands for our aviation vertical. To keep going along this theme here, you might have been greeted by a wheelchair pusher if you needed assistance, or your loved one needed assistance getting to the plane. We might have been the people greeting you walking into the airport. We might have been the one that actually checked your luggage at the terminal baggage check-in place. We might have been a person running you around on a little cart that zipped through saying, "Excuse me, honk honk," at the airport. We might also be the people that are subcontracted with the TSA to do the X-ray and bomb scanning of luggage in the background behind the scenes, or actually putting the bags on the plane, or cleaning the planes, right? We also help make airports a comfortable place by controlling the air conditioning, making sure that you're actually comfortable at the airport, making sure it's secure, and also making sure it's clean, right? So we clean carpets, we clean the restrooms, we make sure that they are repopulated with the towels and toilet paper, etc. We also do a wide variety of other services. Just yesterday, we cleaned over 2 billion square feet of commercial property. So that's 2, large letter B, one day, all over the world. We also do a lot of interesting other services, from implementing some of the largest solar panel array systems for universities and state governments, to being the number 2 installer of electrical vehicle charging stations in the United States. We also are one of the only installers for electrical vehicle charging stations for BMW. So we do a very wide variety of services. How many of you golf? Yeah, we manage over 25,000 acres of landscaping and actually cut over 150,000 golf holes per year. Any of you that ever been to a hospital? We might be the people serving you food in the hospital cafeteria. We might be the people that are actually sanitizing the patient room that you were in. We might be valeting your car when you arrive at the hospital. So we run hospitals, we run universities, we deal with commercial cleaning, security, landscaping, facilities engineering is a huge thing. We actually run smart systems, smart building systems, energy efficiency systems. We do LEED certification. The amount of services that we provide is actually tremendous. Now, based on the fact that we actually have 118,000 employees, that means that we have employees over a very wide area of places doing a very wide variety of things. So communications and collaboration for a company our size and as diverse as we are in the services we provide and the customers that we have is a very big challenge. So this gives you a nice little infographic of ABM and what we actually do. Very few people realize that even though we started off as a janitorial company, last year we fixed over 500,000 X-ray, MRI, CT scan, and sonogram devices at hospitals. We fixed over 500,000 heating and cooling systems and maintained them. Right? We're not talking about the air conditioning system that's the one sitting in a window. We're talking about the ones that actually keep cool or keep warm or keep just right. The commercial buildings that we go to for our day-to-day jobs. So at the end of the day, ABM helps people be comfortable, safe, and secure where they work, where they live, and when they're traveling. We service a lot of industries, as you might imagine. Everyone needs their windows washed. Everyone needs their trash taken out. And everyone needs to be comfortable, right? HVAC, security, landscaping. This applies to so many different industries. We also even do some specialized stuff like industrial cleaning like we do at BMW in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So back in 2006 when I joined ABM, we were only predominantly providing services in the United States and Canada and Puerto Rico. Now we're actually providing services across 30 different countries through a mixture of self-perform, contractors, and through partnerships with third parties. So what was life like at ABM? In 2006, we had a very locked down, fixed environment. There was very little mobility in the company. If you were an executive, you might have had a BlackBerry. Anybody remember those devices? Just feels like so long ago. But for most people, I mean, even if they had a laptop, they still could not access their email in Lotus Notes on their laptop. So you're a traveling executive and you're about to get on a plane, you can't take your email with you. You can work from your BlackBerry, but that's not very productive. So again, Lotus Notes domino environment. Same time was pretty much limited. That, by the way, for those of you that have never heard of Same Time, Same Time was Lotus's solution purchased by IBM for instant messaging and presence. And this product was actually only used by IT. And it was so that IT could collaborate on problem solving, et cetera. The business really didn't take off using Same Time until we actually started introducing the idea that, hey, we should really get into instant messaging, improve communications and collaboration. But Same Time never really took off. It was used very sparingly. The other major thing that was interesting about ABM back in 2006 is it didn't even have an intranet. So, I mean, try and think back of what you were doing back in 2006 and what your company was providing in terms of services to its own employees. We didn't have an intranet. Really basic. One other factor that's really important for you to know, just from a systems, culture, et cetera standpoint, is even though we have 118,000 employees, we only have roughly 12,000 information workers. Right? So roughly 10% of our users or our workforce actually has accounts. Right? That's executives, that's accounting, payroll, finance, IT, legal. Right? Some of those shared services across divisions, those are the ones that have accounts. The ones that need them for specific business functions, like communicating with customers, they also have them as well. But many of our building engineers do not have an account, janitors don't have an account, parking lot attendants do not have an account, and most of our airline services personnel do not have an account. So communications is a challenge. And we're about to roll out a set of services that we're calling ABM Anywhere, of which Office 365 is a part of that solution, right? Not only because really the cloud has no factor in it, but the idea that users will have a rich set of tools to actually start communicating with each other and be able to leverage Skype for Business and have that be an integrated and known experience because of the Skype UI is going to drive adoption and also interaction between the 12,000 information workers we have and the roughly 110,000, 108,000 people we have that do not have accounts that can use a consumer-grade version of Skype and still communicate with our workforce that has accounts. So early adoption programs, why do we do it? There's a lot of people that don't like to adopt technology early. Sometimes they are late adopters, or their infrastructures stagnate, and they only upgrade when they absolutely have to. Sometimes that can be for compliance reasons. Sometimes that can be for security reasons. Microsoft announces a product is going to be end of life, or any other vendor that you do business with. There's a number of reasons why companies do that. But in my personal experience, the companies that wait a long time to upgrade have a very hard time retaining their staff. Engineers, architects want to be using that next thing. They want to be cutting edge. And yeah, that brings pain and suffering with it. We all have to get bumps and bruises and scratches on our knees from trying new technologies. But that makes us better at what we do. That makes us experts in our field. So ABM, actually, we usually surprise a lot of business partners, a lot of channel partners out there, because we don't really like to use outside help. We really like to make our teams self-sufficient. Matter of fact, when the business wants to roll out an application, we never let vendors be the jockeys behind the keyboard. We have to install it. We want to be self-sufficient. If something goes south with that system, we want to be able to rebuild it and not to be vendor dependent to actually run it. So, besides as a engineering retention tool, we also want to partner. We wanted to partner with Microsoft, right? We wanted to know what was going on. We wanted to have feedback mechanisms back into Redmond about what was important to us as a company. Where did we feel things needed to go? Matter of fact, I don't know if Terry will ever admit it publicly, but I gave feedback to Terry on the multi-desktop feature that's coming out in Windows 10, and they were actually hesitant to use that as a feature in Windows 10. But I gave them use cases as to why it was important to move forward with that technology. And it had to do with the fact that people have personal lives and they have work lives, and they want to be able to keep things separate. So you can have a desktop with all of your personal folders on it and stuff you like to interact with, and you can have a professional business desktop, so to speak, where you just keep those things separated. People are creatures of habit, so I'm not going to dwell on that. Anyway, what's required for early adoption? Well, one, you need to make sure you're qualified to be in an early adoption program with Microsoft. I would recommend that you speak to your account executive. And if you don't have an account executive, I'm not sure what to tell you. Try and figure out, working with Microsoft, why you don't have an account executive. Because they even have a small and medium-sized business group that you can interact with. What's required to participate beyond that? Time. Time and resources. There is an investment that you make in actually participating in early adopter programs with Microsoft, but the benefits far outweigh the opportunity cost or the actual costs of being involved in these programs. Oftentimes we fly some of our engineers to Redmond, and that's usually a treat for them to actually visit what we call technology mecca, right? How many people would love to fly to Redmond and actually interact with Microsoft on a more personal level? Yeah, put your hand down, Rob. All right, there's actually benefits to having that type of relationship with Microsoft. And again, it's a partnership thing, not a vendor thing. There's a distinct difference. Some of the challenges that we face when we do this is making sure that we're targeting the right audience when we're rolling out cutting-edge technologies, right? You have to pick out who in your company is actually an IT champion. So when we're doing updates, we tend to focus on a very small micro group within IT, usually our own team, Global Infrastructure Services, for rolling out new technologies. And then we start rolling things out to the rest of IT. Get feedback. Start to see the snowball rolling downhill quickly. Downhill in a good way, not a bad way. The other challenges, of course, is that business priorities are constantly changing. So I can't dictate to you how politics, culture, and the financial systems work to make this happen in your organization. What I can tell you is that you have to have staff that have a vested interest in seeing these technologies work, who want to learn, who are hungry and eager to use the technology, but then you also have to have leadership that believes that doing this is the right thing. Two very important factors, and those have cultural, political, and financial implications. I am more excited than ever. Like I mentioned before, I've been at ABM for 9 years, and I'm more excited than ever because we have new leadership at ABM. We have a new CEO and a new CFO, and I was excited to hear our new CEO talk about the fact that some of the things that he wants to focus on are really improving collaboration and communications within the company. He wants to actually change how we use technology, and he wants to heavily leverage technology to differentiate the services that we provide as a company. So, me being a technologist, I'm really excited about that. Change is coming. Obviously, at 118,000 employees, it's very easy for someone to feel like they're not that they get lost in being part of a large company. So the goal is to try and make a large company feel like a smaller company, right? So I'm going to share with you a video that's available on abm.com, but I think Scott Salmirs, our new CEO, does a great job of not only explaining what ABM is, but how he plans on invoking change at the company. Where's our audio guy?
Hi, I'm Scott Salmirs, the new president and CEO of ABM. Today, I stand here as only the 7th CEO in ABM's 106-year history. In the facility service business, there are service providers and there are solution providers. ABM prides itself on being a solution provider. We strive to understand your business, understand what's important to you, and provide proactive solutions to solving your problems. Whether big or small, every client is important to us. We understand that the services we deliver not only affect our reputation, but affect your reputation as well. That's why we are so committed to having every customer interaction leave a lasting impression. Whether that means our parking personnel taking good care of your customer vehicles, our landscapers making your campus beautiful, our security officers warmly greeting your guests and making them feel safe, our janitors keeping your property clean, our HVAC technicians keeping your building comfortable and energy efficient, our electricians keeping the property well lit, or our building engineers keeping equipment operating properly. I spent the first 20 years of my career on the client side at places like Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers, so I understand how important it is for our facilities to make a positive impression on you and your customers. I worked over the last 12 years in the Northeast region doing just that, and more recently running our global aviation business as well as our international expansion. I loved my time at ABM and couldn't be more excited about the opportunity to lead this amazing organization. Looking over the past 100 years, as we have grown from a one-man window washing operation to an integrated facility solution provider with over 118,000 people, servicing all types of properties from commercial office buildings to hospitals to airports to universities, some things remain constant. To succeed, you need outstanding employees that are customer service focused. So what I'd like to say to our existing clients is thank you. Thank you for your vote of confidence. And to our prospective clients, we look forward to the opportunity to serve you. ABM is about building value, and we couldn't be more excited about the future. Thank you.
All right, so you've heard enough from me. Now we'll get on to some more exciting stuff. I'd like to welcome to the stage Patrick Murphy, Enterprise Architect.
Hello. Yep. So I'm going to talk to you real quick, or a little bit, about some of ABM's journey to Skype for Business, and taking a look at some of the usage scenarios that we have with Lync and Skype for Business. And forgive me, I'm going to go back and forth because having a little bit of identity crisis with, what do I call it? It's clearly Skype for Business. But the evolution of things, we're going to look at the timeline at ABM for the communications platform and look at how we evolved over the various products from nothing to Skype for Business. And last, we'll take just a quick gander at the topologies that we have for Lync 2013 and Skype for Business in our organization. So looking at some of the usage scenarios for ABM, as Andre was saying, we have a lot of employees, and about 10% of our employees, 12,000 users or so, are actually in Lync. And 2,000 of those today, right now, more than 2,000 are actually in Skype for Business pools today. So that's been very helpful to us in growing through the stack. Again, I'll get into the history of how we got there. ABM, you see, we're all over the place, geographically dispersed, so it becomes very hard for people to interact. And what better platform than Lync or Skype to actually keep people in touch? They can keep, just talk to each other anytime. The mobility portion of things is very helpful because users are all over the place, and who knows when they're not at their desk. They could be on travel for business or just stepped away, for whatever way it be. But being able to have the presence, just you're there all the time. You have users that are actually not at their desk and be able to, you see their green, yellow, red. I'm sure some of you are familiar with all of that. And works on all the platforms, whether it be iOS, Android, whatever it may be, and desktop computers, all of them are there. It's been very helpful for us throughout the years in going to using Lync and Skype. The presence is very important because, and I'll get into it in the history portion, where we didn't have presence, and it made a drastic improvement of being able to see who was available and who was not available and whatnot. And you can see adoption over time. When we were putting things together, the federation became tremendous. We started working with Microsoft, and they were the first organization we federated with, and I'll go through some of that in the history. But being able to reach out to Microsoft employees or other partners right there on Lync from your desk or from your phone even, it has been tremendous in being able to help us collaborate together. The collaboration is very rich. Being able to do voice and video is just powerful. I can't explain enough that when you get into conversations, the nonverbal skills, or the nonverbal communication, you guys can all tell I'm kind of nervous, so kind of standing here a little solid. But when I go to talk to my team members, some of them in the room, it's very helpful to see them as I'm talking. Sometimes I can get a little long-winded, and I need to see that they're trying to talk, so I can shut up. Oh, look, they're talking. So that's very, very helpful. Also very helpful, and they sound very grumpy, but look at them, they're smiling. So it's okay to be able to communicate with them, that rich collaboration experience. Being able to share desktops and files, very helpful. Be able to just drag file. Oh yeah, I added it to the meeting. There it is. Go look at that file. Right there, live in communication. The telephony has been a huge part for us as well, where it's not just enough to be able to interact with people on IM and video, but what about the people who are not at their desk and don't have the mobile client, or they're at the airport and they don't want to interact, per se, even though it works great to be able to talk on a Lync call on a mobile device, just dialing in. It's very helpful. Sometimes our internet connections aren't well, but being able to dial into meetings and actually join people to our meetings with a phone line. You can call them right there in the meeting. and join them right in. Been very helpful. So take a look at the history of how some of this usage plays out. As Andre was saying, when he first started, he was in 2006, I started in 2009, but there was no presence, hardly at all. He said IT was the only people at ABM actually using SameTime, the chat client. It's just a chat, that's it. And you'd be lucky if people were actually on it. It's only IT. It's like, hey, did I get that person, and oh, they might be there. And remember, he was saying it's only accessed through Citrix. So you had to not only be logged into Citrix, but you had to log into the note session, into SameTime. Kind of cumbersome. Phones were really commonly used. We had Cisco phones already being deployed in the organization, so they did pick up the phone a lot and communicate. So when we first started getting into the Exchange platform from Notes, OCS, Office Communication Server, was part of the platform. So we entertained it. And for the very first time, employees were actually to use one client to do IM, video, sharing, all of it, presence. All of a sudden, you could see everybody's availability. I could see if Chris was online. There he is. Hey, what's up? You know, couldn't do that in SameTime. I mean, you could, but there was really no status indicator in SameTime. It was also a lot, it wasn't as stable as we'd like it. Yeah, it's the beginning product. It is what it is. But one thing that we would see is even before OCS, there were a lot of users that would just hop on Skype, pre-Microsoft Skype, the old school Skype. And they felt like they could communicate on that a lot more effectively and be able to keep up with it. A lot of the experiences we're used to today really weren't available in the product. So they would use the Skype, the old school Skype. Then in 2010, this is where Andre was mentioning we began our relationship, maturing our relationship with Microsoft and entering in early adoption programs. So we started using Link 2010. We engaged them. I believe we had a program directly with them, a TAP, to actually install it and set it up and start working with it. The things that were fantastic about 2010 was that it was noticeably more stable. Completely noticeable. Users were actually like, I could use this. And you could see more adoption of people, especially with the presence. You'd see more and more of your colleagues coming online. You could ask them, hey, so what's up? Why, you want to use this link thing? Oh, look, there we are. So you'd be able to chat with them very easily. We also, in 2010, began working or connecting it. That's when we started getting the telephony into the picture, where we actually connected PSTN gateways to Link 2010 environment. It wasn't part of the 2009, it may have been available, but we didn't do it. It was the first time we really started doing telephony. And users started really entertaining this as a meeting platform. You know, we had bake-offs between all the various platforms. And the old Live Connect, I forgot what it was called. But nonetheless, WebEx and those of the nature people were using all over, but now this was a contender. We could actually use it for meetings. And in IT, we were using it all the time. It would be nothing for us to schedule all of our meetings, and it was a really easy button right in Outlook, meeting, and it would just make it for you. So we really liked 2010. 2013 took it to the next level. It really was more mature. The Office platforms really were getting mature. They were becoming more, I think the ribbon stuff happened in 2010, so it actually got better in 2013. And the integration story was just a lot more profound, being able to interact with things. The video started working a little bit better. They had HD, I think it was 720, not full HD, but again, people were just starting to embrace this stuff. Even if you think outside of the corporate world, it was kind of new. I mean, I'd call my mom on Skype and whatnot, but doing it at work was a novelty, and it was really being embraced. In Link 2013, we also began being able to share IM sessions and voice sessions with public Skype people. So all of a sudden, a whole new group of people were available for instant communication and collaboration. Let's see what else. I think 2013, I really thought it was a great time. I remember the mobile clients got better. This is where mobile clients actually started to really get to be a product you could use. I actually remember for the first time using the mobile client. I was at my desk on VPN, connected to our organization, using the Link client, And I called Andre. I knew he was on an airplane, but he showed up green. I called him on video. He answers, and I see him. He's got his phone looking at him with his headphones on. He's in the sky talking with me on a linked video conversation on his iPhone or iPad, I think it was at the time. He used an iPad at the time, which was unheard of. I mean, like, wow, all of a sudden we can get Andre anytime as long as he shows up as green. So, and our culture in IT, we do kind of stay up a little long. So yeah, we do get, if I see Andy online, I'll just be, hey, what's up? And we'd start talking and chatting. And video, really, again, video is very helpful for us, being able to keep those nonverbal communications going on. So then in 2014, late 2014, we were approached, or we worked with Microsoft on Skype, or excuse me, Link 2015. That's what they were calling it back then. They had not really embraced the title yet of Skype for Business, or at least in the beginning they did not. And this is where we started staging up the environment we're all virtualized, so it was all in VMware, and we began standing it up and testing it, and using our own people internally first, and then collectively adding more and more people. And as part of the TAP programs, they actually do require you to roll forward in a production environment. So it's a little nerve-wracking, but when you've got the right folks around, it's quite helpful to, or quite easy to, it's very doable. So the, what was I going to say here? So in the Skype for Business, they started terming it Skype for Business, and these fellas, Jim and Mike, will come up here and explain to you some of the speed bumps we had and challenges. But we hope to, in 2015, move the entire organization, all 20,000 plus employees that are IT information workers, over to Skype for Business. And this will happen probably here in the next couple of months. As Andre was saying, we're moving forward and pressing hard on Office 365, and this is just integral part of it. The bits are out there. I think Skype for Business has been released. Yeah, so it's ready for you to use. And in 2015, later on in 2015, depending on the timing, we actually hope, cross our fingers, move everybody online. No more on-prem link at all. So that's really what we're looking forward to the future. And let's see. So let's take a quick look at the topologies of our 2013 environment. Some of you may be familiar. I know this isn't an overly technical session here, but this is a very high-level view of our topology for Link 2013, because it's still in existence. We only have a fraction of our users on the Skype for Business pools. There's nothing overly fancy about this configuration. I will point out that there's only one SQL server behind the environment. Being a SQL guy, I noticed that. But there's only one SQL server in the environment. When we go over to the Skype for Business topology, we started using the SQL 2014 with Always On for our production pools. So we should be able to have a nice high availability story to be able to remain online for any of our scenarios, updating, failures, whatever it may be. And then we've actually introduced failover pools, and these functionalities may have been available in previous products, but this is how we've evolved. We now have failover pools such that if we have to do maintenance on our pools or something goes down, we actually have a pool there ready to go. And we can start testing various components. This is what we've been doing as we've been rolling out. We got a test pool, we run a new feature, we put it there and take it from there and go on and so forth. And to separate the performance for an analytics of the information, we've got a SQL server dedicated with analysis services, reporting services, that actually provides you with the analytics of the information. And so you see a little bit of difference. But for the most part, one of the things that, and ABM isn't engaged in this, but one of the things that was really, really, really sweet about the product is up until Skype for Business, you had to build new. For each iteration, you had to build new between them. Where it's Skype for Business, you can upgrade in place. We're not doing it for other reasons, but for technical bits and purposes, you can actually upgrade in place. So that's been kind of cool. And with that, I'm going to introduce our system administrator and engineer to come up, Michael Harewood and Jim Mancuso, and they're going to give you some information about build and administration. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, so I'm Michael Harewood, Senior System Administrator, and this is
Jim Mancuso, Engineer.
So we're usually the guys behind the scene, but today we kind of made an exception for Andre. So here we are. Oh.
Yep, agreed to put pants on today.
All right, some things we're going to talk some things we're going to talk about are some of the issues we ran into when we started the whole process for, Skype for Business. So the first issue we actually ran off with was DFS, which Jim can talk about.
Right. So when we inherited the current Link 2013, the file store was actually set to use a NAS, and everything was fine. Everything was running, humming along, and we hit a point in the Skype for Business tap where we started having a lot of prompts for credentials on the clients. So we were kind of scratching our heads, and Microsoft finally came to us and said, well, are you finally going to get rid of the NAS? And we did. We stood up DFS, switched over to it, and within hours, about 80% of those issues had gone away. So that was pretty interesting, and actually pretty important, right? Because that was one of the biggest complaints from people was the password prompts. Yeah.
And next two builds, we got more password prompts, but that had to do with actual Kerberos. So one of the builds actually removed all the Kerberos assignments to all the pools, which was the 2015 and the 2013 that we had. And that caused us to constantly get prompts for exchange, credentials, and whatnot. So we had to, I worked with a Microsoft rep, and we actually had to re-link or re-establish connection to the Kerberos account that we had in Active Directory. And from there, everything went on smooth. So we know from the next builds, we know actually the process, the scripts to run, and it was pretty seamless. Another issue ran into is Windows updates. So they had a few updates that actually deleted some DLL files and some of the servers, and thank God we actually had one that was still running. I was able to say, okay, this file is located in this folder, let's copy them to the servers that were actually affected, and we just started up the services. Everything went fine.
That was probably attributed to just the very early bits, because we didn't really see that since October.
Yep. And so then we had another project where we actually had to migrate our Exchange online. So now we're in hybrid config, and that brought another issue. So we're getting more prompts. Everyone thought it was the same thing regarding the Exchange prompt, but it's looking for your account in the cloud. So we actually had to use our actual email address rather than our local logins, and we took care of that. Also, we had some DNS issues. Once we went in hybrid mode, we had to actually use our external DNS config for Skype and actually put it in our internal DNS, and that resolved those issues that we're having.
Something else that at the very beginning, we noticed, well, it may have been, we just didn't know, but we had to make sure that all of the references to any 2010 link was removed before we went forward. That may have changed, but that was something that we...
Yeah, we were in mixed configuration of 2010 and 2013. So we can either be on 2010, then migrate to 2015, or be in 2013 and migrate to 2015, or Skype for Business.
So something else is the Link 2013, and when we started the Skype for Business tap, everything was on VMware. And when we built the Skype for Business machines at that time, Link 15, we kind of modeled the hardware that was on the production ones, and we noticed everything was very oversubscribed, tons of RAM, tons of CPU, and it really wasn't even utilized. So just in the past month, when we started getting ready to do the RTM build, we are doing it in Hyper-V this time, and we got the white paper from Microsoft about the best practices, and so some of the things that we're doing over there that are drastically different from the way they're running in VMware is we're doing things like disabling hyperthreading in NUMA. The CPUs on the virtual machines are following a 1-to-1 ratio of the physical hosts that they're running on, so they're no longer like 16 CPUs, 20 CPUs. We're not using dynamic RAM. We're setting the amounts static. Same with the disks. The disks are fixed. Doing SR-IOV on the hosts. The Skype for Business machines have NIC teaming on there, so we kind of got plenty of redundancy on that. And there are no live migrations because for some reason Link does not like that. Creates jitter in case something actually migrates when it wasn't expected. You want to talk about any of the policies? No?
Go ahead.
Okay. So some of the things that we're doing is because when the user gets on the new pool and they have the new client, they're just going to wake up and see a new user interface. So that's good and bad. We had worked on some policies to control the UI, so we would just create a new client policy, and if we wanted to put users on the pool and on the client, but them not have the new user interface yet, we could apply that policy to them. We also had a policy for rate my call. We stood up a machine that would analyze the rate my call, so if users were in a meeting, they would hang up, they'd get a prompt saying how was the call, we can collect that information and use that information to figure out maybe why did somebody say that their call was terrible. Or why, the call was great, whatever. But we can see that information now. And we also did a policy for server-side conversation history. So if you start a conversation on your mobile and then move to your desktop, it will follow you there. That's it for the policies. Let's see.
Next thing we worked on with the actual network department was they had a VCS interrupt system where they're able to make some configurations on their side where we're able to actually join Skype for Business conferences with the Cisco Tandberg devices. So they have a few Tandberg devices in remote offices, big screen, nice camera. And from there, we could actually dial into a link and actually host conferences, which is a really cool feature. With this deployment, Microsoft had a new VIS server, video interrupt server, which we're able to do the opposite. Cisco can actually dump conferences on the link side, which makes it available for more users to actually join into a conference. But that's something we're still working on right now, so should be here in the future. Want to talk about it?
Good.
Our next thing is best practice, basically. We have load balancers, net scalers, which we could leverage, but depending on the build, actually all the builds Microsoft recommend round robin DNS, which we use. It works perfect. They said, best time to usually use NetScalers if you want to have a centralized DNS name to actually manage users in the admin console. So for now, we're using that DNS. Yes, next slide.
That's it. Yeah.
I guess that's it.
Yeah, so.
You have any questions you want to ask?
Yeah, that's actually, that was really just the stuff that we stumbled across in our experience building the new Skype for Business stuff. So far, it looks great. The
Good
machines
feedback.
are running solid. The user experience is pretty good. I'd say it's pretty successful so far. I think at this point, we're going to turn it over in case anybody has anything they want to ask myself, Michael, Andre, Patrick.
Yeah, if you do have any questions, we'd appreciate it if you walked up to one of the two microphones. It should be hot by now. Thank you, guys.
Anybody except my boss is welcome to ask a question.
So how do you spell Skype for Business?
Turn off your mics.
Oh, looks like we have a question.
Mics. There you go. No, that's okay. Those mics work. Sound guy?
Sound guy?
Question mics?
Question mics aren't hot.
Go for it.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very interesting. To the tech guys, I wanted to ask you about the Cisco integration stuff that you did with VCS and VIS. Were you able to get multi-party conferences going in either direction?
No, that's still something.
Okay, so you can only do point-to-point from either initiating from the Link side or the Cisco side. Do you expect to have it working then with VIS then? Multi-party conferencing? Okay, thanks.
Hey guys, thank you. So we're going through. I'm with Giovanni. We're going through an upgrade right now from a legacy version of Link 2010, and some of the features that we've had have struggled with the right level of reliability. Obviously, dial tone is pretty interesting table stakes for IT. So moving into this and looking at the future ahead, a couple features that'll be important game changers include video for us. So any guidance on how you kind of maximize getting the right degree of reliability, stability out of the conferencing infrastructure while also teeing up some of the important things for video at a point-to-point or larger level through the organization? What would you recommend?
Well, first of all, there's a marked difference between Link 2010 and Link 2013, not only from a server stability standpoint, but from a codecs, video streaming, the whole nine yards. It's just a very different experience. The Link client is a lot more stable, and from just a video services, audio services, the clarity is unsurpassed. Another major difference between the two platforms was that Link 2010, there were pieces of it that they really recommended you keep physical, whereas 2013 really supported all of its roles being virtualized. So if you're really running a virtualized infrastructure and want to depend on that, that's really the route to go. Skype for Business is obviously also more modernized with those capabilities as well. So it's just a matter of, regardless of which virtualization platform you're using, it's just making sure that you have the right number of resources assigned to your virtual machines or physical instances so that you're actually sizing your boxes correctly. And another thing to look at very closely is the client types and what their network bandwidth and connectivity situation is like. Because obviously if you're not getting good, consistent wireless connections, if you have a lot of wireless users, that's going to obviously be problematic. Believe it or not, simple things like just the wireless driver on a laptop can be the #1 cause of problems of jitter or just a bad video or audio experience. People wonder, I don't understand why my stuff's not working. Well, did you turn off streaming Pandora before you entered into that conference call? So it's just stupid, simple little things that sometimes can really be a big blockade to success.
And one quick, sorry guys, one quick tag on to that. So site to site, are you guys using MPLS or something else that might provide a more typical mode? So are you internet, DMVPN? I mean, how do you guys connect?
Name it. We use it all. So about 180 offices are MPLS, roughly.
Okay.
And then we've got about another 90, 100 plus that are site-to-site VPN, IPsec tunnels, so forth.
And is it a reasonable experience when you're running video over a non-MPLS connection if you're interacting with one of the offices?
It really depends on how many Pandora streaming users you have in that small office that are trying to also download YouTube videos and, you know.
Got it, absolutely.
Yeah, it really depends on your network, your situation. Unfortunately, it's one of those situations where context really is decisive.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got a dual deployment with 2010, 2013, migrating all the users to 2013. And right now, 2010 is still prod. 2013 is a prod. I just only have a pilot group in there, mostly our ITS people.
I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
I may be too short, too tall for the mic. Better?
Oh yeah, much better, thank you.
Okay. So I have a dual deployment, 2010, 2013, in the process of migrating users to 2013. I was thinking of upgrading the 2013 future prod instance to Link or to Skype for Business, but you were mentioning because it's a dual deployment like you were talking about. Is that doable? Because the restrictions that you mentioned before, I just want to make sure, because you talked about having one or the other, but not both.
Correct. It has to be one or the other. So, as we said, we were both on 2010 and 2013. For us to move forward, we actually had to, we just moved to 2013 since it was the newer instance. So, yeah.
Okay.
But I think what you're saying there is, about how you couldn't have 2010.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't, to go to Skype for Business, you can't have 2010 in the environment.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Whoa. This might be on. So for the two gentlemen that asked questions, or the three, we have a T-shirt for you. So ask a question, get a Skype T-shirt.
I have one question for you. You were talking a lot about presence. What do you do with mobile integration? People talking in mobile phones without the link application. What about presence in a call for them? Have you done anything about that?
I want to understand your question. Are you talking about presence for users that are using the Link mobile application?
No, presence for users using a mobile phone without the Link application.
So you have to have some kind of endpoint that communicates that presence value back to the Link server for communication for other Link users to see, or even for Skype users to see.
Yeah, but there's a lot of mobile operators giving status information from the mobile network, making it available for integration towards, for example, Link or Skype for Business. Have you done that? Or are you missing presence on users only using a mobile phone without it? Okay.
Only using the client on the device.
Yeah, okay.
That's the only way. I mean,
No,
all the client information is just traversing the same protocol going back over an encrypted link.
It's not the only way, but that's how you do it. So then the users have to have Link on the mobile phone to have presence in Link.
Yes.
Or they can also be running the consumer-grade version of Skype. It really depends on how they're registered and show up in the address book.
Yeah, but if they are using the mobile phone with no client, then you have no presence on the users, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And the second question is, have you phased out the Cisco environment? Has that been a part of the process?
So are you asking if we're looking at replacing our Cisco VoIP environment with...
No, you said that you had hard phones on people's desks
that is
before
correct.
you started the process. Have you phased that out?
No, we're not using the enterprise voice capability of Link or Skype for Business.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we have the ability to dial out, but it's due to an integration that we've made with our Cisco infrastructure.
Okay.
We still use all of the circuits and everything that the VoIP infrastructure has at ABM.
Okay.
But really, Cisco is the VoIP provider, so to speak, for Link and Skype for Business.
Do you have plans to phase out Cisco and use only Skype for Business for all IPT?
Right now, no. We look at, we have our Director of Global Network Services here, Craig Terranova, but, and we believe that he is here because he wants to reevaluate things on a regular basis. No, I'm putting words in his mouth right now, which is unfair. That's why he's starting to glow red a little. No, I'm teasing. The team at ABM is constantly evaluating new technologies. And things have to make sense culturally, politically, and financially. So if it all of a sudden made sense for, hey, Skype for Business is the greatest thing since rockets landed on the moon, we'd kind of be forced to evaluate that situation. But since that's not the situation right now, and people are happy with our Cisco voice over IP infrastructure, they're happy with the cost model, right? So we're hitting the right buttons politically, we're hitting the right buttons culturally, and financially it makes sense. Doesn't make any sense to change. But again, and Craig and I have discussed this, at some point it may make sense to evaluate some kind of enterprise voice option to use Skype for Business in some of our smaller offices where they may not be able to either A, afford the infrastructure necessary, for Cisco Voice over IP, or where we strategically want to place Skype for Business. And again, that's on a case-by-case basis, and it's not expected to be an enterprise standard anytime soon. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And if you wouldn't mind, actually, would you deliver a T-shirt to this nice lady?
I have a question in regards to the enterprise voice and dial-in conferencing. I think you set up dial-in conferencing, is it right? Conferencing? Yes. So are you using quality of service, or is it just the best offered service?
So because we have so many users, we have right now a number of different conferencing solutions, and we are working right now to consolidate those. Craig's team and my team are working very closely together on what those solutions will look like, and I'd say things are still kind of up in the air, but we're trying to make sense of what's best for the company, and we'll move forward swiftly when we finalize everything. Thanks for asking a question. You want to catch? I can't put a spiral on it, but...
Hi there. I was wondering what specifically you were using DFS for. Is it a true requirement for Skype for Business, or just a choice you made?
It is. Is it a requirement? It's a best practice. I will say that the problem we were having with the NAS was because it's not a Windows-based NAS, so it wasn't. I guess it was the computer accounts that were having problems. The NAS is, I don't think the data's even really, or the DFS, I don't think the data's really even changing on there. Once we flipped it over, it wrote the data to it, and it's been pretty consistent, I think. But it is a best practice. I don't know if it's a requirement, but it is a best practice, and we did see problems directly related to it.
What was the back-end DFS server? What server was DFS running on? Was it server 2012?
It wasn't. We didn't have it. We didn't. No, we did. Oh, 2012 R2.
So there is a possibility that one of the major reasons why there was a performance difference was the differences between SMB 2.0 and 3.0.
Okay,
quite
so
frankly.
So it's just the file store then for the front ends? That's
Yep.
all it is? Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
there's considerable differences between the two. So obviously running on server 2012 R2, servers are able to talk to each other much faster, streamlined, lower overhead, less latency, et cetera.
Okay.
I think the question is, what is actually on the DFS, right?
Yeah, I assume the file store for the front ends for uploads
Yes.
and all that sort. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so basically all the front ends share common data. So
okay.
it could be the address book that it downloads from Exchange, and all the front ends actually share all that data. There are other stuff too. We didn't really dig deep into them, but that's one of the main things.
Okay.
Are there any more T-shirts? Okay.
Shirt! Did it again.
So, just a clarification. You said that you didn't use hardware load balancing. You're just using DNS round robin, correct? So, what about for the HTTP request? I mean, don't you need session affinity for admin web access, web pages, and Meet Me conference web page? What about those kind of requests? Don't you need a DNS load? Don't you need a hardware load balancing for those? Because for this, how did you achieve session affinity? Is my question. Session affinity, like how do you prevent the use? How do you let the user go to the same server every time for every web request?
So
Not for it.
So
Okay,
when we were
that's-
talking with our rep, it's a best practice. If you go look at the build scenarios for small implementations to small medium business and to large enterprise, Microsoft's best practice is to use DNS round robin, and that is
That's for the SIP request, I thought. It was for the HTTP request where you require actually a session affinity and you don't want to log into each time you go to a different server. That's where I thought they recommended us to use the hardware load balancing. That's why I was
Gotcha.
wondering how the...
Here you go.
Yeah, the admin web pages and all that where you require actually the,
Yeah, rather than going to the
cookie.
actual
Yeah,
front end.
exactly. The cookie
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be, persisted on the same. Okay.
Yes, yes. Sorry. Yeah.
You do, right? So
Yes.
Okay, so that's
Sorry.
that's a confusion. Okay. Second one is the contact store. You said that you had issues with contact store when we actually moved from 2013 to Skype for Business. So what sort of issues you had? I didn't get that actually. This is the unified contact
Well, the
store
first
stuff?
one was because of the DFS. Yes.
For the unified contact store stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's related to DFS.
Yes.
Okay.